Flowers, flowers, and more flowers, all in today's episode of Roguecraft. Stay tuned. Hello there, and welcome back to Roguecraft. It's going to be a bit of a different episode today as I go into full tutorial mode on farming flowers in Minecraft. With the changes that came with caves and cliffs, I think that the way we look at farming flowers needs to change a little bit as well. So sit back, relax, get something cold to drink, and let's get into this. A few episodes ago, we built the skeleton farm so we can collect bone meal for all the flower farms we're going to need. In Season 2, I managed to find 2 really good spots for farms that produced all the flowers that grow in the overworld. I was much luckier that season than I realized. This season, I have been doing a lot of exploring with the flower mod, trying to find that perfect location for a farm or two, and not really having much luck. After literal days of looking, I realized that with all the changes to world generation and the Caves and Cliffs updates, maybe I was coming at it all wrong. Maybe the way to go now is with several small targeted farms instead of massive farms that overproduce flowers I don't really need. In Season 2, I used a water flushing design to break all the flowers, but this season, since the plan is to make smaller targeted farms, I'm going to try a piston bank farm. In the upper right-hand corner, what you're seeing is the Flower Map mod, which is an amazing tool for finding flower farm locations. On that map, you see the light blue patch, which, if you look at the map key on the left hand of the screen, turns out to be the blue orchid, which makes sense because we're in a swamp. The areas that are bouncing between yellow and red will only grow poppies and dandelions, while this section over here is a strip of plains biome that will grow poppies, dandelions, cornflower, azure bluets, and oxeye daisies. This farm is going to target the orchid, but I'm going to place it so it overlaps onto the poppy and dandelion section, so I'll only grow 3 different flowers out of this farm. The path blocks here detail the footprint of the redstone that goes underneath the farm. This type of design has been around for years now, and I have no idea who came up with the original. Probably Omango or Nembomb or somebody like that. But I was looking at a video by YouTuber More Tings. There is a link to the video below, but by the time we get to the end of this video, I'll have some minor changes to make the farm slightly more server-friendly. Now this stone layer on the bottom is where all the redstone dust will go. It may not be completely necessary, but it helps to see where it goes. Here at the end of this leg, we place a note block. And on top of that, we put an observer that will be watching the note block for any signals it gets. And as I said, we're going to put redstone dust on this entire area, except right here where we put a repeater. The reason we need a repeater there is because the signal just won't go the entire length of stone without a repeater in there to strengthen the signal. Now we set the repeater to 2 ticks, which is very important. This repeater will also delay the signal between the banks of pistons we'll be placing in a moment. By having it delay, 1 bank of pistons will push the grass blocks to the left, and then 2 ticks later, the other side will push those same blocks back. Now at the end of this leg, we want to place a second note block 2 blocks away from that redstone dust. Notice it's on the same level as the dust and not the stone block underneath. Then place a second observer facing the note block. This will be how the piston banks will receive their signal later on. Once those blocks are in place, we can place a dispenser facing upwards on top of the first observer. This will be where the bone meal goes to create all the flowers. Now we just have to add a layer of stone around the dispenser in a 5x6 block wide platform. The main purpose for this layer is to prevent flowers from drifting under the farm later when it is running. This platform does not cover the redstone dust on the left or the right of the farm, but it does cover the side with the repeater. Sharp-eyed viewers will notice that I used a couple of slabs over the middle redstone branch. The placement of these slabs is not crucial, but I'll go into why slabs are needed at all and where they can go later on. At the moment, this is the first time I'm building this farm, so I'm building it to match the video I watched exactly, but I'll be tweaking the design by the end of the video. Next up, we place an observer on top of each piece of exposed redstone dust, 10 observers total. Then, on top of those observers, we place a regular piston. Between the pistons, we want to place a 5x5 square of grass blocks. This will leave a 1-block gap on one side of the platform. It does not matter which side the gap is on. With the grass in place, we'll need to build a wall around the farm to keep all the flowers inside when it's running. You can use any block you want for this. I'm just using stone to keep it simple. All of this will probably be replaced later when I decide to fancy it up. I'm using full blocks everywhere but right here above the note block. This needs to be a slab to give us access to the lever, which will turn the farm on and off. You'll notice that when I flick the switch, the farm only cycled once. That's the way it should work until we add the observer clock. And there's that slab I was talking about. Now we have an air gap above the lever that allows it to be reached while we're standing inside the farm. So let's add that observer clock and get this farm ready to go. An observer clock is simply 2 observers looking at each other. As soon as you place the second observer, the first gets all excited and says, "Ooh, look, a new friend!" And the second observer sees the first one get all excited, and so it gets excited, and they keep reacting to each other like this over and over and over. The second observer sends a signal into the note block, which triggers the piston banks to push the grass back and forth. In this case, the lever locks or unlocks the note block so you can turn the farm on and off. And now that the farm is ready to go, I'm going to fly off in this direction for no reason at all. It certainly isn't to pick up the bone meal that I forgot to bring. Nope, definitely not that. And as if by magic, a shulker full of bone meal blocks has appeared. Let's convert that to bone meal and you will immediately see why we need slabs down here. If we used all full blocks for the platform, then you wouldn't be able to access the dispenser at all. I'm going to move the slab so I can get into the dispenser from where I was standing before, but for now, let's see this farm in action. All we need to do is flick the switch and then very loud noises will occur. Let me turn the volume down so that I can talk. So, the way this farm works is the dispenser shoots bone meal into the grass blocks. Flowers and grass grow, then the pistons move the grass over 1 block and all the grass and flowers break. This repeats until you're out of bone meal or until the farm is turned off. You can basically stand here in the center of the farm and collect the items manually, which is sort of the main drawback of this farm over the larger farm designs. There's no room for automated collection. This may seem like a large drawback, but the reality is, unless you're building a ton of fireworks or on a busy server and have a shop that uses a lot of dye, this size farm is probably going to serve all your needs. I'm working on a large-scale flower garden as 193 blocks by 193 blocks. Even on something that size, I'm not going to need much more than a shulker of each flower, and won't need even that much of most of them. So even in my case, I might have all the flowers I need after 30 to 40 minutes of running the farm. Now let's take a look at the farm after I've worked with it for a while to see what changes I made to the design. And here is what it looks like now. I ended up boxing it in with stone brick so it wasn't floating off the ground. Nothing too special about the build, just something to tie to the ground with windows and a roof to keep out the phantoms. But that's all window dressing. The main change I made was to the on-off switch and how it worked. It should be said, there is nothing wrong with the original design, but if you find yourself on a server, best practices are to minimize any lag you might cause the server. One of the ways to do that is to add a true on and off switch for the observer clock. The original left the clock working, but locked the note block from receiving the signals. This left the observers constantly triggering each other. I chose to add a sticky piston below one of the observers so that when the farm was turned off, it would literally pull the observers apart. Not only does this reduce lag, maybe in minor ways, but it also makes the farm run smoother. Servers interact with redstone in odd ways, and on the Roguecraft server, this change actually sped the farm up. Just look. Compare that speed to how fast it was running earlier. Why is it running faster this way? I have no idea. I was just attempting to stop the clock from running when the farm wasn't in use and found this unexpected benefit. Now, as I said at the beginning, this farm is small and targeted and only produces 3 flowers. That means I need additional farms to produce the others. Like this farm, which produces all the tulips. I went searching flower forest biomes for an area like this, but stumbled on a section of plains biome that grew the tulips. If you can find one of these rare spots, it is the best place to get tulips, as getting them from a flower forest will require much larger farms. Over here, I have a farm that only produces the allium and the azure bluets. And on the side over here, I have a farm that produces cornflowers and oxeye daisies. Which leaves us with one last naturally growing short flower, the lily of the valley. Finding a farm location for these can be difficult. They only appear in flower forests and can only be farmed if you find a cornflower circle. What I mean is, you might find lilies that spawned on world generation, but they won't respawn in those locations unless they're at the center of a cornflower circle. Looking at the flower map, you can see that cornflowers grow here, but as I go up in the Y level, you can see that center of a circle forming that is nothing but lilies of the valley. I'm not quite sure why Minecraft made them so difficult to farm, but it is what it is. Once you find one of these circles, you are set. In this example, you're going to have to imagine that the flower forest here was actually wide enough for that semicircle to form a complete circle. In an 8,000 by 8,000 block area of this world, we have 6 flower forests, and this was the only spot where I found I could farm lilies. So when using this mod, just find a patch of cornflowers and check your Y levels until you see something that could be a circle forming. And with lilies now being farmed, I think that's where I'm going to end it today. It's a bit of a different video for me. I don't normally go so hard on the tutorial side of things, but I think enough changed in Caves and Cliffs that it was time to go over some of the details and how all this works now. That said, I have been Gragore, and this has been Roguecraft, the Flower Farm Edition. Coming up soon, I can finally show off the project that all these farms are meant to supply. So there's that to look forward to. But until then, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, always try and find a way to make it fun. See ya!